everybody, welcome back to another book related video here on my channel. Also, sorry about any background noise. I actually have the air fryer going right now, so it might be a little bit loud and you might be able to hear that. But I thought it would be kind of a nice little video to more than most likely have spoilers, but do a little reading vlog over a trilogy that then was added to, and it's now 4 books total. So we have this trilogy with Legend, Prodigy is the second book, Champion, and then there's a 4th book that I don't own, but it's called Rebel, I do believe. I was hoping to kind of get all of these finished before the time that I happen to go home. So I kind of want to make a reading vlog out of it. I can't promise that I'm going to finish all 3 books before I end up going home. Each book is around 360 or so pages. Don't know how much reading I'm going to do back home. We're going to start today off. Well, not so much today because it's the end of the day actually. So I'm going to start this video later, but we are going to start with Legend and then continue on. More than most likely, I think I'll try and update every 100 or so pages. Legend only has 305 pages, so I feel like 3 updates per book is actually a decent number. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this vlog. To do my first update, my first 100 pages of Legend, and pretty much just run through what's been happening in the first 100 pages, which I feel like hasn't been that much, but also kinda a little bit. It's like picked up a little bit more. So to start off, we start off in Day's point of view. This book is dual point of view, and you just have Day or June. You start off in Day's point of view, and when he was 10, he had to take what they call is a trial, and pretty much he didn't get the passing number or score that he was supposed to. So he got rounded up with a bunch of other people who did not pass. Technically, they called them, they weren't concentration camps. I think they were called like training camps or something like that. And he was supposed to be there, and he was there. He was taken with all these people. They got not really taken care of, let's just say. He ended up escaping. He's the first person to, I do believe, ever have escaped, but he was one at least of the few who have ever. And because of that, he all of a sudden became like a most wanted person, and also because of the fact that he went out to live on the streets and kind of do crime. And when we start off in his POV, you kind of learn a little bit of backstory about him and about his family. His mother, his dad died a long time ago, I think when he was semi-young. So you got his mother, his older brother, which I do believe is 3 years older than him. His name is John. And then you have his youngest brother. His name is Eden, and he's 10. As of right now, we have Day, who, like I said, was 10 when he took the trials, and he is currently 15 or around 15. He's watching his family's home, which technically they don't know he's alive except for his oldest brother. They are in the poor sector, at least one of the poor families. I think once a week the plague patrol goes around and they see if anybody has plague. Right now there's like a big quarantine going on with certain people who do have the plague, and there's a lot of different variations of the plague. America's like divided in 2. You got the colonies, which is a little bit of the eastern side, and then you got the Republic, and the Republic is more of the western side. I think it's like the Colorado is the dividing line, like kind of all the way up. That is the war front line. You have these soldiers coming in and they're checking door to door to see if anybody tests positive for the plague, and then they'll just mark an X on your door. They get to Day's family's home and they go in if his family has the plague or anything like that, and they end up, Day notices coming out, turning around and marking an X on the door. But then they also put I do believe it was just a vertical line, that's how I was imagining it. They put a 3rd line in through the X. Then they leave, and Day knows that somebody in that family has the plague, or at least a variation of the plague. So of course he's very concerned and, you know, trying everything and trying to figure out who potentially has it. So then we hop into June's point of view, the other point of view, and pretty much hers for a while is just getting a little bit of backstory. She's from a higher up family. She's also the first and only person to have passed her test with her trial with a perfect score. So she ended up graduating early, and she also went to college, but then they didn't necessarily kick her out of college. They were about to, because she was a troublemaker as well, but more so she got out early. She got to graduate early, I guess, and then she went into military. Parents are both dead. They died in a crash. And then she only has her brother with her. They're like best friends, you know, they live together, they care for one another. He's always there. He's, I don't know how much older, but he's a lot older than her. And he basically became her parent in a way because she was super young when her parents died. Because of the dual POV, we're switching back and forth from Day to June and vice versa. So we go back to Day, and around 25-30 pages, Day actually ends up trying to break in, or does succeed to break into a hospital to get a vaccine for the plague. And of course, the plague vaccines, for whatever reason, are out of stock in this hospital. And then it becomes this big ordeal where he already broke in and he's stuck there because they shut down the hospital, and he ended up escaping to a stairwell that was right outside the door where he was at pretty much, and he escaped all these guards, and he ended up jumping out of a 2-story window, falling, hurting himself. Also ended up running into June's brother, who didn't shoot at him, but he had his gun ready and he just didn't want to, I think, hurt him. But then Day, to escape, he went into the sewer system, but right before, he ended up throwing one of the knives he had, and it ended up hitting June's brother right up here in the shoulder above the heart, and then he escaped in the tunnels, and that was the end of the chapter. Well, then we start up June's chapter. Of course, it's her brother's like worker, somebody who he was always best friends with as a child. They grew up together, and then they both became military, and they're in the same unit, or I don't know how it's described in this book, but pretty much they're together. They're one on top of the other almost. He ends up coming over, and he has a little bit of rifle grease up here on his forehead, and he's telling her like, hey, there's a problem with your brother who went on patrol at the hospital. And he ends up taking June, and June realizes that her brother is dead. He was killed, and Day is the first person that everybody thinks it is because of the fact that they can't scan his fingerprints for some odd reason. They don't show up in their system, so they know right away it is Day. That is pretty much what goes on in the 100 pages, because then after that, June goes on to trying to find Day and trying to bring him in for the murder of her brother, and also probably past crimes, but more so the murder of her brother. And another thing, which I will just include a little snippet overlay on top so that you can see better, because I won't be able to show you directly, but the really cool thing about this is the pages font color, and also the font itself is actually different between Day and June. So for Day, it's golden and more like a rounded font, and then if you go to June's point of view, it's actually just like regular black text. There's nothing too crazy about it, too special about it. So I do think that's a nice little add-on to this book, something while reading, but it did take me a while for my eyes to adjust to the two different fonts. So far, I'm enjoying this book. I'm hoping that it'll pick up more. I think I have my suspicions of what's going to happen later on in this book, because I feel like it's going to be more of a subplot of romance, and then it's going to turn like book 2 more into the romance. I don't know for sure. That is my first 100-page update on the book called Legend. So I'll update you next when we reach 200 pages. Time for another update. This is for 200 pages. Actually, I read till 204 because that's the end of a chapter, the next of a chapter. So in the last 100 pages, Tess and Day actually go out and save June. They were watching I think it's called a skiv fight or something similar like that on the streets, where it's like kind of illegal, but people bet on other people who are fighting for money. Tess accidentally ended up being in the skiv fight, and June for some reason stood up for her, and she ended up fighting in the skivs fight, and then somebody ended up stabbing her. After June walked away after winning the skiv fight, Tess and Day went out, grabbed June. They all became like together, like not friends, but like they kind of looked out for each other for the first night to a couple days, and they started to become a little bit closer, and there was something in between June and Day that was starting to fester. All of a sudden, after a few days, June finally realizes that she is actually hanging out with the person that she's looking for. She's hanging out with Day, and it's all because at night when he went to go to bed, he subconsciously grabbed for his pendant that actually was lost when he broke into the hospital. So because of that, she realized that it was Day. She was the person she was looking for, and she got like excited, but she also was confused because Day didn't seem like the type of person that the whole Republic makes him out to be. He never tried to kill anybody. He was always very sweet. He also just saved her. So it's kind of like that mix of he's not really what she thinks, but also because he apparently killed her brother, she wants to turn him in. When she went back to the Republic, they made a whole plan together, all the Republic officers and June, and then they didn't necessarily follow the plan, or at least the officers. June tried following the plan. They used Day's family to basically trap Day, and they ended up arresting him, and also somebody of his family was killed that night. It wasn't June's fault. June was very upset that anybody died. It was supposed to be. Nobody got killed, nobody got hurt, and of course the officer just wanted things to get done as fast as possible, so she ended up killing somebody or putting orders in, and somebody else killed a certain person because she doesn't do the dirty work. You know how it is. This is pretty much my update. We're picking up a lot more speed. I do enjoy this book, but I can tell because of what happened between Day and June, I just felt uncomfortable about their ages. They're a little too young for me. Maybe middle school would have been a really great time to read this. The next time I update, I will have finished the book since there is only 305 pages. So I will see y'all then. Hi, hello. I want to do a final update for the book of Legend before we start on a new one. And also I'm gonna get ready because we are going to the pool because it is like 10 a.m. It is already over 100 degrees. It's been over 100 degrees. And also I do believe it's supposed to rain around 12, give or take. So first off, I want to talk about how Day is actually now, with everything that's gone on in the past, I feel like definitely 100 pages, maybe even a little bit more. He has become a public icon, and it's more because he's always done these things. You know, he's rebelled against the Republic to a point, and a lot of people end up either getting beat up for displaying that they support Day, or they end up getting killed. So she discovered some diary entries that her brother left her, found out that he had discovered a lot more. He discovered why their parents died. There was just a lot of information that he found out that the Republic was either hiding or that they did things differently, and pretty much the Republic isn't what they say they are. Really changed June's point of view. So then she became determined, mainly because Day did not kill her brother, but also because she now is kind of iffy on the Republic. So she goes back and she's like, I'm going to help you escape. Not to a T, she doesn't say that directly. They end up escaping. There is something that happened to let them escape pretty much, or to buy them more time. They went out on their own and they are pretty much just in a train, or I guess just away, because technically they're in LA. So they're just heading away from all of the hustle bustle of LA. And I'm going to rate Legend as a 3-star book. Pretty decent. Like I said, just the age thing is the only thing that bothers me, but I do like a lot of the information that went on. I like a lot of the action, and I kind of like some of the twists and turns and the secrets divulged. So that is where we stop. That is our update, our final update on Legend. And like I said, we are headed to the pool, so I'm trying to kind of braid my hair because of the water and because it's a little long. I don't want to make my mind completely up about how I feel about the next book, or mainly so the third and potentially the fourth book. But as of right now, I don't necessarily see how we can continue after the second book. I can understand the second book, but I also don't know if I'm going to want to get the fourth book, because I almost feel like the 3 books by themselves are going to be enough to basically tell the whole story, the whole Legend series story. So like I said, right now I don't want to make up my mind too early into the series, but at the same time I'm kind of unsure about how much of the series I really want to read. I will read the 3 books because I own the 3 books. While I make myself a PB&J, I want to update on the first 100 pages of Prodigy, but first, let's talk about this book. And I'll do like I did with Legend, a close-up of the words. But first off, this book is more black and blue, so if you're out in the desert or out in the sun for a while, it's going to be hot. Very hot, because I've been reading this book a lot at the pool. And secondly, when you first open up, you have this map of America. So kind of how I wasn't sure on how to describe how the United States was when it came to like like the ocean flooding, and then a lot of this eastern side was taken up by the ocean, and a lot of, thankfully, California was also taken up by the ocean. They still had parts of some states, and then some states were combined. So we do have a map, which is so much better. And then also, we start out in June's point of view. Honestly, I thought this was dark brown, but I guess it's just black font. It's the same font. And then a few pages later, about 20, we switch to Day, who's now has the same font, I do believe, but it's now blue, which I like that. I like little touches like that. I like how each book is its own. It's very different. We ended Legend with them trying to kind of track down the Patriots. And so when we start Prodigy, we are actually towards Las Vegas. Terrible place. Absolutely terrible. I don't even know why people come here to vacation. I can't stand living here. They're coming here to track down the Patriots and to try and pretty much get them to help Day, for one, help him like with his brother, and then also his leg because he got injured. They eventually run into the Patriots, and they do agree to help both June and Day, but they also want them to help them in return. And this isn't a spoiler. If you read the actual summary of the book, it right away said a spoiler to me. The elector that is technically running the Republic dies, or he might run the whole states. I think it's just a Republic. So he eventually dies, and his son ends up taking over. The issue with that is everybody didn't like the original elector, or just some of the things that he implemented weren't necessarily the best. So with this new one, his son, the Patriots really want to cause like chaos, and they want the people to come together, and they kind of want to form what the United States was. They basically are saying like, hey, you have to help us if you want us to help you, since you have nothing that really is like offerable or valuable to us. So they're like, you're gonna have to kill the elector. And they want June to do it because when she was a Republic soldier, but also they want her because he took fancy to her at a long time ago. He actually has liked her before. So they kind of want her to worm her way in, get real close to him, even though Day and June are together, question mark. So that's pretty much what we get. They do accept the Patriots offer so that Day could get better, because June wasn't sure if he was going to make it or not. And also they accept because of course, Eden. There's like more information, like they get briefed. You don't necessarily know about it because then it would ruin like the actual chapters. So you don't know specifics, but you just see things going on, like Day getting his surgery. He gets like a metal knee replacement or leg. And then also they're kind of like getting briefed. Like you hear a few things that they want June to do, but you're not, like I said, not hearing too much perspective or specifics. For the first 100 pages, that's really all we're at. So it's not boring. Don't take, since I'm saying like there's not truly much happening in the first 100 pages, that I'm not saying it's not good. It's not interesting. It's definitely not boring. Hi, hello. We are doing another update. I'm changing how I'm updating. I'm sorry to do this 20 minutes into this video, but I started trying to edit my video so it'd be easier when I finally finish these books, and I seen I was already almost at 20 minutes. Around 20 minutes to 25, what I edit on starts lagging really bad, especially the interface, and it gets really hard and annoying to try and edit really long videos. So I try and keep them under 20. So I'm now changing, instead of trying to update every 100 pages, I'm also just going to update like this type of update just at the end of the book. Kind of just want to not make it super hard on myself to edit, and also I feel like it's a little bit easier because sometimes in 100 pages not much goes on, like not a lot of information, so I feel like I'm not giving a good enough update, if that makes sense. So without further ado, also sorry if you can hear the washer. I shut the door to our laundry room, but I'm sure you can still kind of hear it, and I had to wash our bed again. So I just finished Prodigy, literally like a minute ago. 371 pages. I do believe I updated just after the first 100. It was like 104 pages or something like that. So I think what I last updated on was that they accepted the plan for the Patriots. June had a funny feeling about the guy in charge of the Patriots. His name was Razor. Turns out she started connecting the dots a little bit more. She finds out that, hey, I don't really want to go through with this plan. So she keeps trying to signal to Day, who they're separated at the moment. She's off with the elector because she got arrested, and then that was a whole part of the plan. And then his side of the plan was like doing running work, so they were doing all this other side stuff to make her side basically be correct and make sure that nobody thinks that she's lying or she's giving them false information so that the assassination can eventually follow through. And she tries signaling to Day specifically, and pretty much he understood that it meant stop, but he didn't understand what she meant stop to specifically. So he kind of carried on just a little bit because he's like, no, I need to find my brother. I need to make sure my brother is safe. So then eventually she did it again one more time. She actually tried fainting when the day of the assassination. They were getting ready to load into the Jeeps, into the caravan, and go to basically the assassination point. And then she decided to fake being sick, but she was also actually sick at the time. And then when she did fake faint, the Elector was like, hey, we need to go take her to the hospital. Well, then Razor took over and he said, scratch that. We're actually going this way first and we'll take her to the hospital afterwards. So everybody was following Razor's plan first because they thought it came from the Elector. And so then June really realized that this is all because of Razor. There's something going on, that he really wants the Patriots to assassinate the Elector, but doesn't exactly know why. She's not positive. Day was having, while getting ready to throw this grenade to kind of distract so that some of the Jeeps would veer off in the convoy, so that way the Elector would be all by himself in one specific Jeep. So pretty much he was getting ready to throw the grenade and he was going back and forth with himself inside his head, and he was saying like, do I trust her or do I just go ahead and try to assassinate him and get my brother? Because he was so confused on what to do. And then in all in on, he's like, I don't think she would risk her life to act the way she did to try and stop whatever's going on. She knows information that I don't know. There was one sentence in here specifically that said, I decided to trust June, or I trusted June. He trusted her. He stopped the assassination plan. They eventually ended up fleeing. Tess did not want to go with them because she thought that they betrayed. Tess wasn't in the rest of the book. Don't know if they're in book 3 going to connect again, but pretty much she thought that Day betrayed her to, or all of them actually, to be with June. They then decided to launch off into these tunnels, and they ended up being on the colony side when they poked up. There was specifically one Patriot who, she is actually the girl who stabbed June in the skiv fight, and she went over to the colony. She was originally from the colonies, but she followed them in the tunnels, and then she went out and she was trying to tell Day to, hey, you need to go back. Razor tricked us, everything like that. So she eventually got a hold of Day, and Day happened to leave June alone because she got real sick, and they went to a hospital, and she was alone in a hospital room, and he left her just for a few minutes to go talk to this other Patriot. He kept seeing all these soldiers, colony soldiers, running in the direction of the hospital. He knew that June was then in trouble or about to be in trouble. They eventually escaped. Patriot that they were with helped them escape. She was once a fighter pilot. They climbed to the rooftop of the hospital, got into a fighter jet, and then they took off, and they ended up getting to the Republic side after a lot of things happened. I don't want to spoil every single thing in this book. Pretty much there were certain things that happened, and then Day decided to climb a building up to a balcony so that he could broadcast, basically announce to all of the civilians like, hey, I stand with the Elector. The Elector is not like his dad. You know, we need to trust him. We need to do this. And if I'm publicly for him, you need to be too, because you are always apparently publicly for me. It's not really word for word what he said, but yeah, you get the gist. He persuaded the public. The public loved him. They then started trusting the Elector. Then pretty much June and Day, the ending of the book is they get this nice, you know, they get checked out, make sure they're not actual spies from the colonies, make sure they weren't bugged or anything like that, and they get treatment. June gets better because she's no longer sick. They get apartments, everything like that. But while Day is getting ready to see his brother that the Elector actually ended up letting go earlier, he ended up getting to see his brother in the hospital, but then the doctor took him aside and told him something that is kind of impertinent. And in the beginning, I was like, I don't know why or how there would be 3 whole books, but now I can understand it a little bit more. And I had to say, with the news that we got, because it kind of just ends a little bit abruptly, I think now this is one of my favorite books so far in the series. With that being said, now that we finished Prodigy, we are now going to start on Champion. Champion is 369 pages as well, so it's going to take a couple days. Hi, hello. Let's do a little update on Champion. And also, I'm sorry about if I sound any different at all. My husband actually ended up coming home from a couple-week trip where he went. It was just a lot of different time zones and more so the different weather. And he ended up getting kind of like allergies. He got sick a little bit. And then, of course, the day that he leaves, because he was only home for a day and a half, of course, the day that he leaves, I start getting sick. So everything has to happen right before I go home. With that little note out of the way, let's finish this video, go over Champion, and then let me wrap this up so then I can go edit it. I don't believe I updated at all with Champion because I think I switched it to where I was only doing one update because this video was so long. So pretty much there is a spoiler through the whole book that I just don't want to talk about. I just want to say basically what happens in the end of Prodigy. You start back up in this book and it is the whole entire book. I mean, to the last page right before what would be the epilogue, but it's not really classified as epilogue. It's just in June's point of view. Pretty much there's this war going on between the colonies and the Republic. Things have just broken apart and there is something that happens. The colonies basically say that the Republic ended up giving them a certain version or variation of the plague, and unless they find a cure, they're basically going to attack them, and they have Africa on their side. And the Republic is trying to get Antarctica, because people live in Antarctica. They're trying to get them to come over and help them, give them aid in this war. And Antarctica is like, hey, only if you can provide a cure, because they're saying that this came from you, this plague, this virus came from you. You need to provide us a cure and then we'll work with you. Also, they kind of talked about potentially giving up land. So I think the Dakotas, since it's not South and North anymore, the Dakotas were chosen to be given away to Antarctica. One of our main characters, June, really cares for the Elector, but it's not the same way that she cares for Dick. And she gets a more political type job that's supposed to be like side by side. It's more so where he eventually would pick, she's one of three in the long run, after the Elector would pick who would basically be standing next to him, helping him make decisions. And more than most, if it was like a female and the Elector was a male, they normally ended up falling in love or getting married somewhere along the lines. So we had that going on where you could tell that the Elector still had feelings for June, but at the same time, June was like, hey, I don't necessarily love you. I really love Day. So we had that situation, and then you got Day trying to be on the back lines, trying to help the Republic. And at first he was a little bit like, I still don't trust the Elector. He grew to trust the Elector, and he grew to want to fight for the Republic, because at first he was also like, let the colonies take over. And then June and him actually ended up escaping to the colonies after a long thing went down. They ended up escaping in the colonies and everything looked beautiful. You know, the grass is totally greener on the other side. And then all of a sudden, while walking along the streets, they started seeing some other things about people who couldn't necessarily afford. They were more so in poverty, but the way it was being handled, you had to pay just to call 911, that type of stuff. And if you were late on your fees, then you got in trouble, and soldiers came around, and I don't know if they rounded them up because it didn't get that far in the book, but there's just certain things that go on. So they realized that the colonies really aren't necessarily this glorious, wonderful place that should take over the Republic. Pretty much the whole rest of the book, it's them fighting or preparing to fight or getting ready, like figuring out little twists and turns. When you're reading it, it's more so events that happen or that certain people realize happen later on, and they connect the dots, and then they say, hey, I know how to save us. I know how to find the cure. I know how to do this. You know, like little things like that that I don't necessarily want to spoil. I have to say this book was just like the other ones, 3 stars. Up until I think page 300, it's only got 369 pages. So around 300 or so, I then wanted, and I can't spoil it, but I almost marked it down to 2 stars because of, how can I put this? Character potentially dying. I thought that person was definitely gone. And then all of a sudden it was, they weren't. You're getting a different point of view. There's a bunch of things going on. And then I was also expecting, because I thought maybe it would be like a happy ever after. At the time, like I thought it would wrap up and then we'd get like an epilogue. And it more so wasn't a happy ever after. And then I thought 2 other people would get together, and they did. They started dating, and then all of a sudden they broke up for whatever reason. And then it skipped 10 years later. And I was like, I can't. Like, this is a 2-star book. I'm already annoyed. I'm annoyed at what happened at the end of the book. And then it kind of wrapped up. And the way it wrapped up, I liked it, but at the same time, I was really mixed on my rating. I did end up rating this one 3 stars as well as the other ones, but I have to say the ending, this one could have been like a really high 2. It was pushing 2 stars, only because of the ending. And these books aren't bad. It's not something, when I say 3 stars, I know sometimes that sounds bad, but they're not. They're actually really decent books. They're just really young. For some reason, this YA dystopian just felt really, really young this time. That is the Legend series, and I have to say, reading what Rebel is about now that I can actually read it and not spoil potential things for me, I'm not 100% if I'm going to end up picking up Rebel, because it's an added on and it's more so just about Day's brother Eden and how he lives in Day's shadow. So I don't know how much I do want to read that. I might pick it up. It's a big might. If I go to like half price books and I see it for a few dollars, I'm gonna pick it up. I'm so glad I finished this before we left. So we have, of course, Legend, Prodigy, and Champion, and all 3 of them were 3 stars, so that was really good. They were pretty entertaining. I really enjoyed the different fonts for Day and June, and also more so the different colors. I really like that. I also like how the last 2 have 2 different maps. I think that's pretty nice. I just like maps in books. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope it was a good enough reading vlog for this series. I hope I covered and I explained. I know I gave some spoilers and then took back and didn't necessarily talk about some major spoilers, but I hope this video was entertaining, and be sure to look back on any videos I have posted. I have no clue the order since I'm pre-filming so many videos, and they will be posted. I don't have to worry about, I think, 10 different weeks of videos, which is really good, but at the same time, I don't honestly know what order anything is gonna be in. So if you're curious about any book related videos, anything that would have been posted before this video would be in my book playlist, because I know I do a lot of vehicle videos and then I have my books. So I do try and keep the playlist separate, and then that way if you're not into vehicles or you just don't care about vehicles, you can look only at the book playlist and it'll give you any of the ones. Some of them are kind of old and awkward and not that good. And then other ones I feel like I've gotten a little bit better. So thank you all so much for watching. I hope to see you all next week, and God bless.